Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here with another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video. And this whole week is going to be basically guide week. Today I'm going to provide a guide on characters and lineups that are good for taking down the Rancor raid. Okay, so let's start out with, when we think about the characters that are good for the Rancor, it's really split into two categories of characters. There are the damage dealing characters, characters such as Rey, Geonosian Soldier. They're just pumping out piles of damage, and really, these characters are critical for helping you put up those big time numbers. But in order to get the big time damage numbers, so they don't die, another classification of character is incredibly important in raids, and that is the set of control characters. These are basically characters that are helping you control the Rancor, generally speaking with speed down or turn meter reduction. So let's talk about who the best characters are in all of these roles, and then what kind of lineups we can set that will help us maximize this. Alright, so like I said, probably the best damage dealer is Rey. I would guess she does maybe half of my damage in raids. Let's go ahead and look at this last raid. It's almost over. I've done 1.8 million. I guess at least like 500 to 800,000 is just Rey. And while that might sound absurd, any chance I can to have her run out of a raid, I do, to try to make sure she's being used as much as possible in the raid. Another great character for this is Geonosian Soldier. I think he's a little bit less valuable than Rey, but he's so great because he can call people to help. Qui-Gon getting turn meter reduction just from the help. Same thing with Tebow. All these characters can work together and calling on speed down stuff, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Another good character for damage is IG-86, especially once you put his Omega Mat into the special. Now it's an every other turn, basically Geonosian Soldier level, call a helper. So that's quite useful. After that, I would say a great character is Leia. I don't have Leia yet. I mean, I have her, but she's not high enough to even worth activating. But once she is, she's going to be quite great. She's available in arena shards now. Definitely get Leia, another damage source. And then after that, it's kind of slim pickings for the free-to-play player. I've been using IG-88 as a guy who maybe put some damage on the board. To be honest, he doesn't really do that much damage, but he does some damage. Alright, so let's talk about then really the people that are making this happen. So these are your damage dealers. That's great. Let's shift over to support characters. So the number one awesome support character for the Rancor raid is Qui-Gon. What makes Qui-Gon so amazing is that once you Omega his basic, he has a 65% chance to remove 30% of the target's turn meter. And he's pretty fast, and he's getting called upon by other people to do his basic attack. So he is stripping away a lot of turn meter from the Rancor, and once you're doing that, it makes it really hard for the Rancor to kill you. In addition to that, he has his Humbling Blow, which allows you to remove the taunts from the pigs if your lineup is good enough to face the pig. So he is quite phenomenal for all of this. Another great character for removing turn meter is Tebow. However, and this is one of the big things we're going to talk about, and this will be a whole video unto itself later in the week, is potency. So if you look at Qui-Gon's potency, it's rather high. It's at 140%. So what this means is he's usually going to not have his turn meter reduction resisted. Whereas if you look at Tebow with lowish gear, like my Tebow is currently, he's only at 30% base. He gets 10% at level 8. He gets another 40% at level 10. So one of the big issues you're going to find is that when you're dealing with your supports for the Rancor, they need to be geared to the teeth. And this becomes a real problem. Traditionally, you're thinking to yourself, well, I want to gear Rey maximum first, and then the Soldier, they're my damage dealers, and that's great. And especially in Arena, that's going to be great. The problem is when you're looking at the Rancor raids, your support guys have to have enough potency to be valuable. Now, if you're doing your raid at like tier 5 or lower, don't worry about that as much. But once you hit tier 6 and 7, your Tebow and some of your other guys need to have some serious potency. So Tebow is amazing, but man, is he going to get resisted all of the time where his base is. You really got to get him up. Okay, another absolutely critical thing to have is speed down. One of my favorite characters to use for that is the Royal Guard. His basic does speed down. He ends up taunting. He is quite useful for this, and his potency isn't too low. It's 40%, but plus 30% pretty low, right? I'm only at gear 8 and he's 70, so it's not too bad. Another guy who's amazing for speed down is Fives, especially once you get the Omega for his basic, you get more attacks, more speed down. Again, his potency not quite high enough. It's only 20%. You really want to get it higher, so he's another character where I'm trying to build him up. Another character that's really good for speed down is the Jawa. Again, though, this is another spot where you need gear, and you really need your Omega in the basic. If you look at it, he only has a 25% chance to inflict speed down, which is not that great, but it moves up to 50% when you get the Omega. So this is the next thing I will be Omega-ing. And the nice thing is, I said you need gear, but not quite as much for him, because his potency is already rather high. It's at 95% at gear level 8. Now, you do want to gear him up more to give him more health, more damage, but he will be able to inflict his speed down. So these are some of the characters that can be quite useful. Han as well. Chewbacca can also help in this regard. But these are the main characters I've been using who've been quite useful. Now, Yoda fills this really weird role where he has this turn meter removal, but it's on a long cooldown. And he only has a 65% chance to hit, so if it misses, it's not that great. But then he has his ability where he can get foresight and then pass it along to everybody else. So he's this character that can be really useful as a different sort of support. Oh, I almost forgot about one of our most important guys, Phasma. Phasma's amazing against the Rancor. Fusillade does speed down. Getting her up to 5, getting her Omega Mat for Fusillade would be quite great as well to get her to 90% chance of speed down. So I'll want to do that at some point soon. Too many Omega Mats to have to do, right? But that's pretty amazing, and her potency is very high, which is also great. What was her potency? Yeah, so she's at 127% on gear level 8. So that's fantastic. And then, of course, she gives the ability as a leader to have people basically do more basics. And as we've been talking about, there's so many of these good basics for turn meter control, for speed down control, that she becomes this incredible character. Okay, so let's talk about actually one more character. If we're doing the pigs, you need a cleanser. Rex is ideal, but this is a video more geared towards free-to-play players. You probably don't have Rex. I don't have Drex. I just dream of him at night. Instead, I'm forced to use Akbar so that he can cleanse with It's a Trap. Not ideal, but that's what you end up having to do. Okay, so let's talk about some lineups. Against the pigs, a really nice lineup is to do something like Phasma for speed down, Rey, Geonosian Soldier, Qui-Gon to be doing turn meter removal and to do taunt removal, and then Akbar as your cleanser. The problem is if you don't have a cleanser, you're really struggling for the pigs for the first section of the raid, and you may just want to wait until sections 2, 3, and 4 when you can actually just use a more stock lineup. Another really good lineup is to have Tebow be your leader, and then have Tebow as your turn meter reducer, Jawa be your speed reducer, and then you can still have your damagers and your cleanser. Now the issue with that, of course, is that the Tebow Jawa lineup requires a ton of gear and Omega Mats to really be great. So I generally use that as like a secondary lineup after Phasma has died. After Qui-Gon has died, then this is like my backup lineup that's highly unreliable, but can be good. But I do want to highlight how amazing it can be when it's up to speed. All right, so for the second phase, this is where you often want to bring Yoda into the picture. Yoda is great as long as he's over 50% for spreading potency against the Rancor's massive attack. He can be quite useful. So let's say you just skipped to the second phase. I would probably do something like Phasma, Yoda, Qui-Gon, Rey, Geonosian Soldier, get some speed down going, rip the turn meter, stay alive as long as you can. You're going to hit the box, so you have that stall, and then get as many people out as you can so that you can come back with a lineup similar to that again. All right, so let's say some people have died. For me, once Phasma dies, Tebow becomes my new leader. Tebow as a leader is pretty cool. He's giving people stealth. He's giving them, this chance for a turn meter gain. He potentially gives himself stealth to be able to enact his stealth takedown, which is where he gets his turn meter removal. So he's a really good leader. Like I said, I tend to have him be like a backup leader. A tertiary leader that I will sometimes use is Barris Offee if the other two die, because she's just giving everyone health, which is quite useful. So a lineup I might use against the second phase then. Let's say I went into the first phase, Phasma died, maybe Qui-Gon died as well. In the second phase, I would probably do something like Tebow as my leader, Rey, Geonosian Soldier, Royal Guard for speed down. That's 4, and then who would I make as the 5th one? Maybe 5 for some more speed down, something like that. Maybe even a Luminara. It's really interesting. Everyone talks about how, I don't like to use heals and taunts against a Rancor. I agree. In a perfect world, none of my guys ever die, and I have the perfect lineup, and all my guys are geared out, no one ever dies. That just doesn't happen, though. So you have to have these lineups where you're juggling. And I feel like Royal Guard and Luminara are both reasonable answers. But so that's basically the bottom line of how to handle the Rancor, is to get some support characters that can carry you. Qui-Gon is a great choice for that. The gear threshold is low, and same with Phasma. They're both low gear threshold, awesome control characters. And then you want to work towards having some of the higher gear threshold control characters like Tebow. Tebow especially is super high gear threshold. I mean, look what you have to do. I went out and bought this with the crystals. I had all these crystals, I had to spend them just to get this stupid gun. And then I still don't have enough because the stun cuffs cost a fortune, so I'm slowly grinding that out. And the real rub of this, of course, is that by the time all this happens, for all we know, there'll be a new raid that comes out where Tebow will be garbage, and we'll be looking at it going, why did I spend so many resources on Tebow? No! And this really is the peril of the free-to-play player, right? If you spend a bajillion resources on Tebow, which you have to do to make him awesome, are you going to regret that in 2 months? You very well may. So, I don't know. I'm doing it. You may not want to do it. Maybe you just want to go with Qui-Gon, Phasma, Rey, Geonosian Soldier, Akbar in Phase 1. In Phase 2, you take out Akbar, you put in Yoda, or maybe 5s or Royal Guard, who you already have, and that's fine. And then you just say, when they die, oh well, I don't have enough turn meter control. But if you can do it, Tebow Jawa also great. So this is my guide for handling the Rancor. Hopefully you got some idea of what kind of characters are good, why they're good, what they bring to the table, some potential lineups you can use. And stay tuned for the whole rest of the week where I talk about the different token types and who you probably want to be going for right now. So stay tuned for next time. Thanks for watching Tiny Grams Games.